Good Friday afternoon to you. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty to talk about. Browns getting ready to host the 0-8-1 Lions, a game they have to have at 5-5 if they have any hopes of reaching the playoffs this season. A little later in the show, Camryn Justice from newschannel5.com will join us to talk Browns. We will begin by talking Browns. Some really good news out in Berea. Nick Chubb, Demetric Felton, both activated off the COVID-19 list. They are expected to play against the Lions and will both be needed for the Browns to do what they need to get done. Tack McKinley, Donovan Peoples-Jones, both questionable, limited practices today. A.J. Green, Troy Hill, Anthony Schwartz out, will not play against the Lions. News from the Detroit side of things. Jared Goff not able to practice, so it looks like the Lions are getting ready to start Tim Boyle at quarterback. He would be making his first NFL start at quarterback for the Lions on Sunday. Kevin Stefanski talked about having Nick Chubb and what they hope to get from Chubb on Sunday.
I mean, that's how it was trending. Felt good about it going that way. I think it was good to see him in the building. His teammates were excited to see him. So, you know, Nick's very important to what we do and who we are. Yeah, well, you have to be smart there. You really have to follow the protocols, and you can't, you know, there's a certain amount of time that you can't do anything. Yeah. And then there's a ramping up period where you can start to get going. But physically, he looks good.
Let's welcome in Dennis Manoloff, the D-Man from WTAM News Radio 1100, 106.9 FM. Dennis, Browns need Nick Chubb. Not necessarily against the Lions, but they need Nick Chubb.
Yes, they do. And, you know, I think it's a mistake to say, well, if the Browns would have had Chubb on Sunday against the Patriots, the result would have been different. And I'm not going there because I think the Patriots dominated the Browns in such a fashion that didn't matter who they had out there. And the fact is, Dearness Johnson had a decent game, especially that first possession. But overall, yes, Nick Chubb is a huge part of what the Browns want to do. He's part of their, you know, run-first identity, if you will. And, you know, I can't wait to see him back.
Well, the other thing is they're starting Tim Boyle at quarterback. And I follow football pretty religiously, and I can't tell you a thing about Tim Boyle. So with Tim Boyle at quarterback, this game the Browns need to be the kid at recess that's stealing the Lions' lunch money. They need to just go out and dominate this.
Yeah, they need to do to the Lions what the Patriots did to them the previous week. Absolutely, the Browns should win this game by plenty. I was saying the Browns were going to win easily, even if I didn't know, you know, even when I didn't know that Chubb would return. So the Lions are a mess. Yeah, they're winless, but they've been plucky along the way. The problem for them is they're really banged up. Honestly, though, the way Jared Goff is playing, I don't mind seeing Goff. I don't really care who the Lions quarterback is. I'm pretty sure that the opposition is going to beat them. Now you say, well, how can you talk smack like that when the Browns got destroyed and the Steelers played the Lions to a tie? Yeah, the Lions can do some things. Okay, they're an NFL team, but they're not good. And the Browns, they haven't proven this year that they can hang with the good teams, but they have been able to pound several teams who are bad into submission. So I look for the Browns to win this game easily.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And quite honestly, the Browns, after last week's game, need a game where they go and take out some of that frustration on an opponent like the Lions. This tweet is from CBS HQ, and it's very interesting. It kind of illustrates something that I knew, but it puts numbers behind it. This is the difference, and you see it there in black and white, as to what Nick Chubb means when he is in the Browns lineup and what the Browns are without him. 13-6 with him, 500, 3-3 without him. You see the points per game, the rushing totals, the yards per rush. The thing that really jumps off is the rushing touchdowns when Nick Chubb is in versus when he is out. All that goes to show just how important Nick Chubb is to this Browns running attack, and some of those numbers surprised me, quite frankly.
Yeah, you're right about the rushing TDs, but also the scoring difference for the team. More than 8 points per game different in scoring when Chubb is not there versus when he is there. So, yeah, the numbers bear it out. You need the big man, and he will be, I don't know how much he's going to have in terms of the oxygen tank. Is he going to get winded at some point? But just having him out there at all is huge.
Yeah, and that is the big question in ESPN.com, what to watch for in the Browns-Lion game, and it is, how will Nick Chubb look in his return from COVID? And nobody knows the answer to that, and they kind of illustrate what I was thinking. Myles Garrett, couldn't get back to being the player that he was when he came back from COVID. Nobody knows the answer to how it has affected Nick Chubb. Hopefully, you're able to use him. You may have to use him in spurts. You may have to spell him more. But Nick Chubb in the backfield is always a good thing.
Right. And, they'll be monitoring it closely, and they'll know. And Chubb will, if it's not there, he'll just raise his hand and say, hey, I gotta be spelled for a minute here. So I don't anticipate any issues as far as communication where Chubb is concerned, and his fitness level, his game fitness level. That's the key, because we know he's in great shape regardless. But I'm excited to watch Nick Chubb play.
So the other thing that is in the offing is it's not supposed to be the greatest of weathers. Temperature in the 40s. They're expecting it to be winds, 15, 20 mile an hour winds, rain. The Browns did play in some pretty awful weather last year. Kevin Stefanski just talked about, did he and the Browns learn anything from those bad weather games a season ago?
Yeah, I think we did, Scott. I think we understand that ball security is a premium. So all the guys that touch it, center quarterback exchange, the exchange between the quarterback and the running backs, catching the ball in adverse conditions are all things that you have to prepare for, and you got to work at those during this week.
So, D-Man, that is a very valid point. That is something that will be an issue if it is rainy and windy.
Yeah, in one sense, it's an advantage for sure for Cleveland to have Detroit, the indoor team, the Ford Field team, coming out of its climate control conditions and having to deal with the elements. But the Lions, they had to deal with what seemed to be a pretty difficult weather day in Pittsburgh and managed to play the Steelers to a tie, even though Steelers didn't have Ben Roethlisberger. So I don't know exactly how much of an advantage it is to get the Lions out of their climate control conditions. But as far as the turnovers go, that's the way that a bad team can stay in the game, is just mistakes made by, the team that's supposed to be superior, and I'm claiming that the Browns in this matchup are superior. The bad team can stay in it by either forcing turnovers or having the opposition just mess things up, such as center quarterback exchange.
Yeah, and the other thing is the Lions offense, it's struggled. They've scored over 20 points in the season once. That was the opener against the 49ers. Haven't been over 20 since. So it's setting up for the Browns to be just fine and kind of dominate the way they normally do.
Yeah, and they're going to want to run the ball, the Lions, obviously, with the quarterback influx, and also they were trending that way, and they showed that they were going to run against Pittsburgh. We'll see. We'll see how effective they are, but I think the Browns will come out ripping and snorting, and I do believe, as hard as it is for pro athletes to be embarrassed, because remember, pro athletes get to cash big checks, so they could sit there and go, why are you saying I'm embarrassed? I'm living in my $1 million home and driving my, expensive car, and I got generational wealth. What are you talking about embarrassed? But I think in this case, coming off of what they came off of in Foxborough. They were so thoroughly beaten that there was embarrassment that kind of seeped into that locker room. So I think they will take out their frustrations on the Lions.
The D-man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Louis Riddick will look at what is up with the Browns. What areas do they need to correct in a hurry? Plus, stat you need to know about Myles Garrett and the Lions. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Browns getting ready for the 0-8-1 Lions over at First Energy Stadium, 1 o'clock on Sunday. A game the Browns at 5-5 have to have if they have any hopes of the playoffs at all. So Louis Riddick, former front office type, now on ESPN's Get Up, had this to say about what he sees from Baker Mayfield and the Browns this year.
Look, when this team gets off schedule, whether it be they're behind or all of a sudden it's 3rd and 7, 8, 9 plus, and the benefits of the running game are not there for him and it's on him, it becomes a problem. It really does become a problem. And I'm as big a supporter of Baker Mayfield as anyone. But those are the facts. They are. When this team gets away from being a run-centric football team, and let's just say 70, 75% of the snaps are going to be throwing the football, he hasn't proven that he can handle that. And what's even a bigger problem is defensively, as many stars as they have, as many quality players they have at all 3 levels. Did you see what New England snatched the life out of this defense last week? That isn't Baker's fault. They snatched the life out of that defense. That's a problem too. So this isn't just a Baker Mayfield problem. The Browns right now have an identity issue, and they better figure out what it is quickly. Otherwise, it's going to turn into another one of those seasons where people go, see, they fooled us again. And they don't want that. They cannot afford to have that.
And Dennis Manoloff, I think that Louis Riddick is 100% spot on with that analysis.
I love Louis Riddick regardless. I mean, he's fantastic. But yeah, that's the thing about Louis Riddick. He doesn't mince words. He shoots from the hip, and he's typically on point. He's a very intelligent guy, former Brown. With the off-script part, a microcosm came in Foxborough this past Sunday. The Browns get the opening kickoff because Belichick deferred. They go down the field. They score. They're up 7-0. The Patriots respond with a touchdown. And essentially from that point on, the Browns were off script, if you will, and they didn't handle it well. So he's exactly right about this team. When everything is fine and when they are able to do what they want to do and dictate the terms to the other team, everything's good. But when the other team creates issues for them, be it the other team's defense to the Browns' offense or vice versa, then all of a sudden they don't know seemingly how to adjust to that, adjust to the adversity, or adjust to the changing schemes. And that's frustrating. And as far as Baker goes, I mean, I know it's only his 4th season, and for a number 1 overall pick at quarterback, 4 seasons in is not that long of a time period, unlike, for example, a running back. But Baker, to this point, hasn't proven that he can beat quality teams late in games. He hasn't been consistently good enough against good opposition, especially down the stretch, especially in the 4th quarter. So I agree with pretty much everything Louis Riddick said.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how are they 5-5? What is the element of this team? Because if you would have told me at the beginning of the year they're going to be 5-5, I probably would have laughed at you and like, yeah, who's out for the year would have been my question. What has gotten them to where they are, which is, they need to turn things up the last 7 games or they aren't going to be in the playoffs.
Well, Dave, we could do this. I could answer this question in 3 hours. You and I could have a 3-hour show on this question alone. But let me just start by saying it's a system-wide situation. It's a building-wide deal. Not one particular person, I don't think, is to blame. But look at the front office. Did the front office actually bring in as much talent as we were told? Because when you look at the talent on this team, is it as great as we were told? Are the Browns vastly underachieving to this point, or are they closer to their actual talent level? So that's a question that I think, I would answer. I submit they weren't as talented as we claimed them to be in the offseason. As far as the players go, if your quarterback is not playing well, or if he's banged up, a combination of that, in the NFL, you figure you're going to be in trouble, and that's the case here. That's part of the reason why the Browns are mediocre. But a bunch of other individuals haven't played well, been hurt. You had the Beckham situation. He turned out to be a colossal disappointment. Defensively, I mean, if you want to try to get a feel for why this team is 5-5, look at the defense. The defense has had some incredible games this year. And you're looking at them going, oh my gosh, I mean, this is awesome. Can't wait to see this week after week after week, such as Bears, 26-6. They made Justin Fields look terrible, admittedly, in Fields' first NFL start. They go to Minnesota and stifle the Vikings, hold them to 7 points, wins 14-7. So there have been games where the Browns defense looks awesome, and then seemingly the very next week or within 2 weeks, they're giving up 30 to 40 points. So it's a combination of everything, really. I don't think you can pinpoint one area, but I will say this. It would help enormously. Everybody would be helped if the quarterback were healthier and played better.
Yeah, and if the defense played into what they thought it would be. I don't think the defense has come anywhere near what the Browns and the folks thought it would be. All right, ESPN.com, a stat to know, and this one's very interesting. Garrett leads the NFL with 13 sacks. The Lions have allowed 10 sacks over the last 2 games, both most in the NFL. What that means, it's time for Myles Garrett to go add to that NFL leading sack total by a lot.
Yeah, Dave, but you know what the Lions are going to do. They're going to pop in the tape, the DVR, whatever the term is used, of the Patriots game, and they're going to go, okay, this is what the Patriots did to take advantage of a very eager Myles Garrett. This is how Myles Garrett likes to get upfield, so we're going to run underneath them, or we're going to run some screens. And it's especially, prudent, I think, for the Lions, as undermanned as they are, and especially at the quarterback position, to do the dink and dunk stuff. And nothing will frustrate a Myles Garrett quite like dinking and dunking, especially at his side. And that's where I think Garrett's frustration came last week against New England when he said after the game we didn't make any adjustments at halftime. He's probably sitting here going, look, I'm trying to get upfield. I'm trying to sack the quarterback, and they're gaining yards at my side. Why aren't we doing something to compensate for that? So it's going to be incumbent upon Joe Woods to adjust to what the Lions are doing, and I think what the Lions are going to do is dink and dunk.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to step aside, take a timeout. On the other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason about the quarterback position. We'll also hear from Colin Cowherd on Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Browns getting ready for the Lions, 1 o'clock Sunday, First Energy Stadium. Colin Cowherd from The Herd says the Browns, this is what he had to say about the Browns and their thoughts on Baker Mayfield.
It's not a talent issue. It's a trust issue. Baker Mayfield's pass attempts per game, as the league is now a quarterback league and a passing league. There's no teams now that run more than throw. Like, it doesn't happen. Rams are like 65 pass, 35 run. As the leagues become more quarterback-centric and more pass-happy, Baker's averaged fewer pass attempts every year of his career. He throws now less per game than Tua, Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. We know Carolina coaches don't trust Sam. We know Miami coaches are reluctant with Tua. So your parents will show you as a kid how much they trust you by the responsibility they grant you. They don't want Baker throwing the ball. I don't even know if they trust him at the microphone. Like, he gets a little snarky.
And D-Man, again, I like Colin Cowherd. The issue is he had Freddie Kitchens and Hugh Jackson who were throwing the ball all over the place. You brought in a different system. You've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So, yeah, they've had him throw the ball fewer times because they have better running backs and a big offensive line. It's called having a good coach, which he has finally for the first time the last couple of years.
Yeah, Dave, I hear you, but there is a push-pull, and I'm not saying I agree with everything that Cowherd said, unlike with Louis Riddick, where I do, especially with a microphone. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been great, as far as talking to reporters, and I think he's been incredibly honest and forthright and doesn't make excuses and all kinds of stuff like that. But the push-pull is today's NFL with the pass-happy offense that you see in a lot of places. You've got the number one overall pick, okay? Not the 20th, not the 10th, not the 5th. He was number one overall. He wasn't taken number one overall out of Oklahoma in 2018 to hand the ball off. You drafted him in that spot because you thought he could throw the ball all over the yard and carry you to victories with his arm. So then it becomes a struggle because you've got Stefanski and he's got his running backs. And one of his running backs, his lead dog, Nick Chubb, is not really a pass catcher at all. So how do you fit these two in? And as far as trusting Baker, if you've got Chubb and Hunt and you are winning the game and they are carrying the mail and doing a great job on the ground and the line is doing what it's supposed to do, then you don't necessarily have to have Boku numbers from Baker Mayfield to win in this system. But there's also going to be times where you need him to throw a lot, and will he be able to answer the call? I mean, think about the Bengals game. Before the Patriots, the Browns went to Cincy and punked the Bengals. What did Mayfield throw the ball? 21 times? I think he was 14 and 21. And most people observing that game say it's one of the best games he's played in his entire career. And all he needed to do was throw the ball 21 times. So it's not always pass attempts that are going to measure Mayfield, but is he going to be able to deliver victories when he has to throw the ball a lot?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair, and he hasn't been able to do that this year when the Browns have needed him to, in fairness. But to say the Browns don't trust him, I'm not sure that's 100% spot on. I think both sides are very valid. All right, along the subjects of quarterback, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the quarterback position with the Browns.
What would it take to get the Seattle quarterback? What would because I was for Sam Darnold back in the day when we were looking at the first pick of the draft, and then Baker seemed to be so smart, and he got up on the chalkboard, and he seemed to, I thought he was the next coming of Bernie Kosar, who was really, really good at reading defenses. And of course, I don't think he is. He seems to hold on to the ball too long. He doesn't throw people open, as they say. He will throw, and his throws are always, it seems like a lot of times, just a little bit behind. They're like 6 inches behind the receiver's body as he's crossing or whatever. And not that he didn't throw well against Cincinnati, but So Russell Wilson, what would it take to get him? Anyway, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, we appreciate the call. And the question would be if Russell Wilson is interested, it would probably be 3 first-round picks, dependent if Pete Carroll and the Seahawks think a lot of Baker Mayfield. You might be able to get it for Baker in 2, but it's going to cost a lot to get a quarterback like Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, because first of all, Seattle's going to do everything it can to keep him. Secondly, if he does say I'm out of here, then there's going to be at least, 8, 9, 10 suitors. So it's not just the Browns. I mean, we here in Cleveland, if we're getting restless about the quarterback, sit there and go, oh, yeah, Russell Wilson. Well, so do other teams, okay? For example, you don't think that a team like Denver would salivate at the prospect of Russell Wilson? I know they got Teddy Two Gloves, but come on. I mean, Wilson's such an upgrade there. And there are other teams who feel like, you know what, we could separate if we added a Wilson. So I don't see Russell Wilson. I certainly don't see Aaron Rodgers for basically the same reasons. The Packers will do everything in their power to keep him there for life. And even if he does leave, I don't see it realistically coming to Cleveland. I think they've got to, Baker's got to figure it out for this team to go anywhere, at least this year and next year, because we know he's signed up at least through year 5. But I want to go back to one quick thing, Dave, that we said in the previous segment. You look at this season and you say, well, he played really well against the Chiefs, played really well against the Chargers. The Browns lost high-scoring games late. How is that Baker's fault? Not necessarily his fault, but at the end of the game, even with those high-scoring situations, they needed Mayfield in another drive and yet another drive to deliver, and he wasn't able to do it. So it's not just because he is struggling in a particular game. He might be playing well for 3.5 quarters, but you need the extra half quarter. You need that final half quarter for him to continue to play well, and he hasn't quite delivered. And one other thing, I charted every one of his throws in his rookie year of 2018. I'm telling you, and you remember it, Dave, he was magical with the ball. It was ridiculous how many good throws Baker Mayfield made in 2018. And I'm not saying that You want this guy to go back to his glory days of his rookie year. And I understand that the competition was suspect, but down the stretch for the Bake Show in 2018, the quality of passes he was making was insane. And I wish we could see that again.
Yeah, that's one thing that could get the Browns headed in the right direction for sure. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, it's our Pick 4 segment. Dennis and I will each pick 4 games against the spread, including the Browns. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Time for our Pick 4 segment. We are coming off our second bye week of the season, as we did not pick last week. Back in week 9, D-Man 3-1. I was 3-1. So season totals, I am now 18 up, 14 down. D-Man 14, 17, and has pushed once. All right, we begin with the Browns at home. 11-point favorites over the Lions. Who do you like, D-Man?
Before I begin, Dave, stay hot, my man. Stay hot.
I will try.
I mean, this is a desperate game for Cleveland if they want to stay relevant in 2021. They're at home. They've got Detroit perhaps beat up off the Steelers game and messed up at quarterback and other places. Oh, by the way, Detroit's winless. Cleveland has proven that it can handle teams that are struggling this year. So I like the Browns to win this. You know, when I think of the score, I think back to the Bears game. We mentioned it earlier with Justin Fields' first start, 26-6 in Cleveland. That makes a lot of sense to me. I could see another 26-6 score. Therefore, I've got the Browns covering.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be in that range, 28-3, 28-7, something along those lines. I am concerned about a backdoor cover, but I think the Browns dominate this one. All right, next one for you. Packers at the Vikings. Vikings, a 1-point underdog. Who do you like in this one?
I like the Vikes. I mean, the Packers have really looked good and over the course of the season. They got Aaron Rodgers back and pitched a shutout over the Rust Bus in Lambeau. But the Vikings are the best sub-500 team in football. I mean, this is a team that, I think is 4-5, and they should be, they could say, hey, we should be 7-2, or at least 6-3. So I think the Vikings are more than capable, and it's a division matchup. It's in their place. If we were in Lambeau, I'd be, obviously going with the Packers, but in this case, give me the Vikes.
All right. Washington football team at the Panthers, who will be starting Cam Newton. Panthers, 3-point favorites.
Cam v. Ron Rivera. Absolutely. Get your popcorn ready. Cam Newton is going to figure out a way. He's going to will this team to victory against Ron Rivera, his former coach at Carolina. So this is the Cam Newton, Ron Rivera Bowl, and I like Newton in the home team.
I love his answer to the question in the game he played last week when he didn't have much prep time. They asked him how much of the playbook he knew. He said 2 touchdowns worth. He scored 2 touchdowns early in the game. It was a great answer. All right, I digress. Saints at the Eagles. Eagles, 2-point favorites against the New Orleans Saints.
You know what? I'm doing this because I'm sick and tired of losing with the Eagles. I keep saying the Eagles stink, they stink, and I disrespect them, and then they either lose and cover or win and cover. So I throw up my hands. Okay, fine. Fly, Eagles, fly. You guys win. I think they're getting better. So I'm going to take the Eagles here, but primarily because I'm sick of betting against them, if you will.
I gotcha. All right. For my picks, Cowboys at Arrowhead. The Chiefs 2.5-point favorites at home. I am going with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. I think they have finally figured out that offense. I know the Cowboys have been better. They played really well, dismantling a really bad team last week when they beat the Falcons. But I think the Chiefs get it done, and I think they cover. They're going to win by 6-10, I think, over Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. I'm not sold on the Cowboys. Ravens at the Bears. Now, I'm going to go with the Bears getting 5 at home. I think Justin Fields will be able to throw a little bit against that Ravens secondary. I am concerned that Khalil Mack has gone on season-ending IR today, so that's going to be an issue with Lamar Jackson. Jackson didn't practice a lot, but I am concerned about Lamar Jackson. I'm still going Bears. I think they keep it close, within a field goal against the Ravens at home. And then the last one, I'm going with the Dolphins minus 3.5 at the Jets. How can you not go against Joe Flacco starting at quarterback for a team? I like the Dolphins minus 3.5 against the Jets.
I like your picks, Dave. Let me mention one thing about that Bears game. It'll be very interesting to see if the Bears, the home of the 46, if they follow the blueprint of the Dolphins defense and get those guys standing up at the line of scrimmage on D, walking around, 7 guys shooting the gaps, and see if they can try to copy what the Dolphins did that frustrated Lamar Jackson down in Miami.
Yeah, and it'll be something to keep an eye on because Sunday night, a week away, it's Browns-Ravens Sunday night, and that one is for huge things. Is the AFC North. If the Browns can get that one, we'll tighten up. D-Man, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Dennis Manoloff, WTAM, 1100 News Radio, 106.9. Thanks so much, D-Man.
You got it. Thank you, Dave.
All right. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, make sure you listen to him. WTAM, News Radio 1100, as well as 106.9 FM. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Lions. Camryn Justice from NewsChannel5.com will join us on the other side of the break. Stay with us. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Browns 5-5 on the year, getting ready for the 0-8-1 Detroit Lions. Joel Bitonio just talked about where this Browns team sits 10 games into this NFL season.
I mean, if you look at, the number one goal of pretty much every team is win their division, and we're within striking distance. We're not where we want to be, but we have everything left. You have 17-game season, so you got 7 games left, and it's one of those things where there's a lot less room for error now, but we're good. We're going to take it one week at a time. We got the Detroit Lions who, played really well against Pittsburgh last week, and we know they're going to come in here and try and get their first win. So it's a big test for us to really bounce back.
And to further illustrate this, the football index from ESPN, Football Power Index, chances to win the AFC North. Ravens at 6-3, a 53.7%. Everybody else, and you see how close they are, is 16.6% or less. Let's welcome in Camryn Justice from NewsChannel5.com. So, Camryn, when you look at this, the Browns obviously not where they want to be. But again, because they have 2 games left with the Ravens and a game left with the Steelers and a game left with the Bengals, they still can do everything they want to do. But as Joel Bitonio said, they almost can't afford to lose any of those 4 games and if they're hoping to get things done that they wanted to do at the beginning of the year.
He's absolutely right. Myles Garrett actually said that today after practice, talking about their margin of error. And he called it slim, and then he called it none. They have no room for any kind of errors at this point in the season. And of course, 5-5 is not where they wanted to be. It's not where I think a lot of people expected them to be at this point in the season. But because they do have these really important divisional games ahead of them and some matchups that should prove to help boost their standings if they get on the right side of things here, it's not over yet. It's not over for them. They still have a shot. Now, they need to win this division. That's their best shot, obviously. Tiebreakers are kind of non-existent anymore. But it's not, they have the season ahead of them still. They have everything that they want still there. They just cannot make any more mistakes. They can't have any trap games like on Sunday against the Lions. That cannot be something they take lightly, take easily. They have to have their foot on the gas this entire season because I mean, it comes down to this. It's down to the wire. The AFC North is a tight race. No matter how far ahead the Ravens look in these percentages, they're not that far ahead. And it just takes one win here, one loss there. And they're not looking at the scoreboards. They're not looking at those teams they say right now. But you know that that's going to be something down the road that's probably going to be a very big deal for them as they look for these playoff potential runs and getting into those playoffs to begin with. So these are important games and they cannot make mistakes. You are correct. And Joel's correct and Miles was correct.
Yeah, and you know, Anthony Walker put it best. You know, the playoffs start now for the Browns, and that's kind of the way that they have to look at it. This is kind of interesting too. I found this really fascinating. This is from Pro Football Focus, Browns Twitter. So the Browns grades via Pro Football Focus: 10th best offensive grade, 4th best defensive grade, 6th best special teams grade. It's the only team in the top 10 for all 3 facets of football, and yet they're a 500 team. That kind of goes to show when they've been good, they've been really good, and when they've been bad, boy, have they been really bad.
And I think those middle ground games too, where you know it wasn't a great game necessarily for the entire team as a whole. Those grades are higher for different levels because you'll have a game where the offense is firing on all cylinders and they look amazing. And then you'll have another game where the defense is firing on all cylinders and they look amazing. But then in between, when the offense is going, the defense kind of slagging. And when the defense is slagging, maybe the offense is going. And you've seen that a lot this season where they didn't have a complete game. Now, the game against the Bengals, that was their most complete game. They looked good on both sides of the ball. And so that was their really only full complete game this season that they've had. Everything else has been either offense or defense, not both. Both haven't looked good aside from that Bengals game, and you saw the results of that game. And that's what they're going to need to do throughout this season. They're going to have to make sure that they are firing on all cylinders, because then you have games where you are blowing out your opponent 41-16 rather than getting blown out 45-7 like we saw last week. So it's got to be complete on both sides of the ball, and they have the talent. Obviously, those numbers don't lie. Those rankings don't lie. I think those are pretty accurate, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes with this 5-5 record and how these games have gone. It doesn't always feel like that. But when you look back at the season and you see some of these wins and even some of the losses that were pretty close, I mean, it comes down to one or the other, and in order to make this season work for them, they're going to have to really get that together and fire on all cylinders in all 3 phases of the game.
Yeah, when you look at it, what area do you think is kind of the area that you're like, boy, they really need to get this figured out? If you're going to say, you know, passing game, defense, what area do you think needs to get figured out in a hurry to get them headed in the right direction? I have a thought, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, the passing game has been something that we've been talking about, right? But particularly with the wide receivers and utilizing them, because you haven't seen that a ton. It's been kind of lacking. But I don't think that is the main part, because you've got the run game, and that's how that offense should run first. That's the identity of this team, is a run-first team. You've got Nick Chubb back now from the COVID-19 list. You've got Demetric Felton back. You're hoping to get Kareem Hunt back in the next couple of weeks, maybe after the bye, maybe right before the bye, but he should be coming back here in the next couple of weeks. And so you've got that run game locked down, and that's established. But the passing game, you kind of see them thrive with this 13 personnel when there's more tight ends on the field. That's kind of Kevin Stefanski's whole MO. And it works for them. It doesn't work in the sense of getting the receivers, involved in the game as much as they probably would like to, and as much as even the Browns might like to, because it just doesn't pan out that way. Now, can they even it out a little bit more and keep some other players happy and spread that wealth around? Because that's also when the offense is doing its best, is when Baker Mayfield's able to distribute that ball evenly. Yes, I think that's an area that they can improve on, but I think the biggest part and the part that has the most question behind it is that defense. I think that's what they really need to focus on, getting it together, getting all sides, everybody involved on the same page, getting on the same page with their defensive coordinator, Joe Woods, and with their coaching staff, and having a game plan that not only works off the jump, but can be adjusted as the game goes on. We heard players like Myles Garrett talk about those adjustments or lack thereof on Sunday against the Patriots, and we saw it. 45 points. That's huge. They were on a roll. The defense looked like they were getting it together. The last 3 games held their opponents to under 20 points. And so that's kind of what it looked like it was going to happen. But you have a break in where you're at, and you slip up a little bit, and you give up 45 points, and you're back to square one almost, it feels like. And so whether it's Joe Woods' scheme and the players maybe trying too hard to make a play and not trusting each other and being out of the coverage that they're supposed to be in, or if it's just poor planning off the jump and not realizing that these offenses are going to give you different looks, like reverses, like these screens, and not being prepared and not being ready to make a play on that. I think that's what needs to be addressed. That's the biggest concern, because the Patriots just showed that you can do these things. You can get away with the lateral runs. You can get away with the screen passes. You can get away with the reverses. And the Browns defense struggled. And so that's something that other teams are probably going to look at as the season goes on as a weakness for them. So that, for me, I think if I'm looking at this, I think that's the biggest area of concern for the Browns moving forward through this season, and something that they need to address first is how to get that defense shaped up and gelling and get back to those games that we saw, another big game like they had against the Bears, these low scoring games. That's what they need to get figured out and sorted out as this season goes on.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if that defense can be the dominating defense that everybody thought it might be earlier in the year, things get corrected and headed in the right direction in a hurry. Camryn Justice from NewsChannel5.com and I are going to take one more time out. On the other side of the break, we kind of turn our attention to that Lions game coming up. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
We continue talking Browns, getting ready for the Lions coming up 1 o'clock at First Energy Stadium. Game the Browns need, and to get that done and start headed things in the right direction for this 5-5 team. Kevin Stefanski earlier today talked about the need to improve on third downs and also what they're trying to do to make sure they continue to cut down on the penalties.
I think our scouts do a great job of preparing the staff, on who we may see, and whether it's Boyle, Blau. Boyle was a guy that I remember we evaluated coming out of college, potentially as a free agent. He was in Green Bay for a couple of years, so I feel like we know these guys, and we'll based on who's out there, we'll adjust accordingly. I think certainly the run pass overall selection. They leaned on the run game. The conditions weren't great there in Pittsburgh last week. They're not going to be great here this week either. So I do think it's going to be a lot of the run game. And I think there was multiple tight end usage. They brought in an offensive lineman to play tight end a bunch of times. So I think that's where they pivoted to, and they had some success doing it.
And what we pivoted to was the Lions starting Tim Boyle at quarterback, his first NFL start, and relying on a run game, something they did after the bye in that game last week where they tied the Steelers. So, Cam Justice, when you look at that, when you're starting a guy who hasn't started in an NFL game and you're a team that really doesn't have as much talent as the Browns, this is a game that the Browns need to kind of get after it, get at the line of scrimmage, and kind of dictate things defensively to the Lions. At least that's what I think. Your thoughts on that?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, the Lions have, look, this shouldn't be a track game because the Lions have played well against some tough opponents all season. Now they're 8-1, of course, but I mean, and that's the thing is they play well, they play strong. So it's not like, even if it wasn't Tim Boyle going in there, it's not like this should have been a game to take lightly. Now with him in there, there is absolutely no excuse for coming out maybe a little softer or coming out slow out of the gate, because you have to take advantage of this situation. You have to expose him and make it known that he is getting his first start. This is a game that he should look like he is new to the game and new to the league, and welcome to it, because you've got Myles Garrett ready to make plays on your line. There's been a lot of talk about how much pressure they need to start applying, and they are not comfortable with the amount of pressure that they have shown so far. And I think that's something that Joe Woods needs to come out with, is a lot more pressure, especially in this situation. And yeah, I mean, they're not going to want to throw the ball. They're not going to want to do that. They're going to try to run it. Like Myles Garrett said today, he said they're going to want to run it until they can't run it anymore. We got to make sure that we stop them at all costs and force them to throw, and then make plays on the ball and score on defense. And that's kind of what their mentality is going into this, is realizing this is the opportunity to turn things around, not only for the team and the season, but defensively, and getting back to those turnovers and those takeaways that we saw kind of come to light against the Bengals. That's what they want. That's what this whole season has been about for the defense. And when you've got a quarterback like Tim Boyle coming in here for the first time, probably starting there, they're still even unsure. Goff is not playing, so if it's Boyle, if it's Blau, you don't know who's going to be in there, but it's not going to be their starter, and that you have to take advantage of that. And I think the Browns are aware of that. And I think that's kind of their game plan, no matter who is, under center for them or at quarterback for them. The Browns know that they have to take advantage of this situation, because this is as good of a situation as you get for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I think the Browns win this pretty handily. I don't know. I'm not sure the score will necessarily get away from them, but I don't think there's going to be any doubt from pretty early in the game that the Browns have control. I think they're going to take control of this game, and I don't think there's going to be much question as to who wins.
No, I agree with you there. And, the Lions have really only been blown out the one time against the Eagles. Everything else has been kind of a little bit tighter of a game. Now there's been a couple scores here, a couple scores there, difference in some of their matchups, but they've played well against opponents like the Ravens, like the Vikings. Even in these losses, the Packers, they didn't play horribly against them. It wasn't a terribly runaway game like that Eagles game that was 44-5. They haven't had anything like that. So yeah, I think you are right there, where the score might not reflect the dominance that the Browns have, especially if there's some weather and it becomes a ground game for the Browns as well too, which it should be with Nick Chubb back in the mix anyway. But I do think that this should be a game where there's not much question that the Browns take it, whether the score reflects that at the end or not. But they should look good against the Lions, and if they don't, that's an even bigger question for them to address as they have the rest of the season. That probably won't end well if they lose this one.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. Camryn Justice from NewsChannel5.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it. Thanks very much, Camryn.
Thank you.
All right, Camryn Justice. Make sure you read her and follow her. NewsChannel5.com. Before we go, time to take a look at our shining stars. So each week, the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students from all across the state of Ohio. Today, we head to Miami County, Covington High School, to honor Holly Beasley, someone that gets it done in the classroom, is involved in the community, also has a passion for music. Holly Beasley, this week's Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Shining Star. A leader would be a good way to describe Holly Beasley. She's a 4.0 student, is president of the National Honor Society, part of student government, and involved in community groups. But it's music that has her heart.
I kind of had like a realization when I was a freshman. I was like, I really love music, and I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, but never put the two together. And I was like, I've really loved the experience of getting to learn and grow in music, and Mrs. Moore has always done such a great job of helping her students and helping them grow as not only musicians but people. And I was like, I would really love to be someone who could do that for other students, people who are younger. Give them the experience to grow in music and to learn.
Holly is the kind of kid that you want in your program, in your class all the time. She has developed into this amazing leader, and she's super trustworthy. She's a student aide for me a couple periods a day. I don't know what I'm going to do when she graduates. I can trust her to start a rehearsal, to run a rehearsal, to take a group of kids, and she always has the best questions too. Like, she always wants to go deeper and dig more. She's really got that curiosity that's going to make her a great educator someday.
The love for music shows up with Holly in a number of ways. She started out playing piano when she was very young, sings in choir, and is involved in drama club as well. But it's band, where she plays the saxophone, that has her heart.
Probably the people, honestly. I mean, yes, music is fun. Music is what I love to do, but everybody is just so loving, and it's just like one big family, and so the people really make it worthwhile.
She puts her heart into whatever she decides she's going to do, and she does balance a lot really well. I think she's really intentional about the way she schedules her time and how she spends her time, which is one thing that makes her really successful as a student.
In addition to the school band, choir, and drama, Holly is also a black belt in karate. Time management is a key for her.
It is very difficult and requires a lot of practice with time management. Trying to figure out my schedule every month as far as when do I have to be where and what am I doing is quite difficult, but after a few years of doing it, you kind of get the hang of it, and it's like, okay, just keep your head on straight, know what you're doing when you're doing it, and you'll be okay.
It's better than okay. Holly is thriving. Next year, she plans on heading to Miami of Ohio, where she'll be majoring in music with the idea of becoming a music teacher.
Holly's gonna have a lot of fun. She gets head and shoulders into anything that she thinks is valuable, and she doesn't like we've talked about. She doesn't do anything halfway, and the kinds of things that she really puts her heart into are worthwhile things. She's also a black belt. I don't know that anybody said anything about that. So she works really, really hard. So she is going to be great at the college level. She's already got a lot of experience balancing, executing that time management that's so crucial for college students. So I think she's going to have a lot of fun and just get exposed to all kinds of different opportunities.
With all she has going on, Holly still finds to be involved in service groups like the Hope Squad.
Hope Squad has been a program to help with suicide prevention. So if a student is struggling and they just need somebody to talk to, we're there for them. We are not by any means a counselor in any kind of way, but we're the bridge to help them get to that counselor and get help.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to OhioLottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Well done, Holly Beasley, and that'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday when we will dissect and dive into the Browns-Lions matchup, and that is Monday at 4 o'clock. We will see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching Sports for CLE.